Okay, guys, it's Sunday. It's a Sunday vlog, and this is, of course, it's not Sunday when I'm doing this. It's during the week, and I'm picking cherries. Our grocery haul, you saw that I bought 5 bags of cherries at a ridiculously cheap price, and now I have to get a haul 5 bags of cherries, which is a little bit of a job, you know, a little bit of a tedious job. So I decided, my back is kind of hurting me today, and all the things that go with arthritis are there, nagging. What I decided was I was going to make myself very, very comfortable. I was going to take this tedious job, set myself up, and be very comfortable. I got myself my drink here, sparkling water. I got myself, my iPad is sitting over here, and in a minute after I'm done talking to you, my lovely friends, I'm going to find myself a nice podcast, and I'm going to sit and listen to that. And I might even, once I move this camera out of the way, this is a lazy boy, I might put my feet up here, and I'm going to haul these cherries. They're on a board here. I've got a knife. I've got a cherry pitter. Have you ever seen one of these before? You put it in there like that. Oops. And then you just push out the pit. There's the pit. There's, oops, my fumbly fingers. There's the pit. There's a few pits there. And there's the cherry left behind. So I'm going to get myself comfortable, and I'm going to get at this. Let's do one more. I'm trying to make it look, oh, okay. Okay, I just shot the pit across the room. All right, we're going to try and do that a little bit better than that. One more. I'm sure once I get into this, I will get the hang of it and be able to zip it along. Here's the cherry, here's the pit. There you are, guys. Saving money sometimes is hard work. It just is. But like I said, those Mennonites, he wanted every single bag of cherries they had in, no frills. So they're willing to do the hard work. Why aren't we willing to do the hard work? Good morning, friends and family. Mostly a lot of family. All my little grandchildren. Good morning. I see you watching me. I see you watching Grandma. Welcome to my morning routine. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning here. I've woken up, and I thought I'd put the camera on and do a little work, a little daily in the life. It takes me a good 2 to 3 hours to function in the morning. I get out of bed, and I really cannot move at all, and everything hurts. Like, I can't lift this arm. This is like, this is about as far as it goes right now. I try to force it. Ow, out like that, and then I try to force it up a bit. I can't lift it any higher than that. It kind of falls back down. But I try to do a little bit of exercises to force the movement into my body, so that then I can move. Relatively okay. Not the greatest. I'm quite hindered, but it's really been a struggle since I started the YouTube channel. When I started, it wasn't this bad. I mentioned that already. I'm going to probably keep mentioning it. It wasn't this bad. I was relatively fine. I wasn't really feeling the effects of I wasn't really feeling the arthritis. I was just kind of living with the awkwardness of the hands. They don't move like they used to since I had arthritis. I drop a lot of stuff. I'm always dropping stuff. My hands just don't hold things properly. And the hard part about dropping stuff is then you have to bend over to pick it up. And that's really hard too. But I force myself. Like, I always figure if I drop something and I have to bend over to pick it up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a stretch right now. And I do a little stretch and pick it up. But anyway, so I get up in the morning, and I usually, do toiletries and stuff, and then I come in here and I sit here for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. So when I sit here, I usually, I usually do my prayers. I can't actually kneel anymore. If you remember, if you're a faithful follower of the channel, you will remember that at one point I said I could still kneel. I can't kneel anymore. I mean, I can get down, but I can't get back up. So I've reduced myself to just being in a chair. But every morning I come and I say, I do my prayers and I do some meditations. Uh, Meditations are probably the best thing to put your life into perspective. You know, people, I know a lot of people do a lot of meditation. A lot of people frown upon meditation. They think it's, I don't know what they think. I don't know. They just don't like it, whatever. But it really gets your head into a good space. It gets you thinking clearly and properly. And we need that in today's day and age when we got so much garbage being filtered into us that we need to get our head into a good space. So anyway, I come here and I do that and I sit and I spend this time working on my project. So I always make sure I have something at this table that I can be doing. Right now there's a couple things I got at this table that I could be doing. I have two of my dolly dresses sitting here that have been cut out. I've only managed to cut out two of them. I have to cut more. And I also am working on this is a lamb. This is one of my primitives. This is a lamb. That's his body. And there's his head. It's of course it's not sewn yet. But anyway, so I can come here and I can sew if I wanted to. I could sew. These are gifts. I already made two of these and I gave one to my niece and one to my daughter Heather. And these two are gifts. One's for Holly and one's for my other daughter, Ronnie, for their birthdays. Ronnie's birthday is in August, and Holly's birthday, of course, is not till December. So I'm not in a terrible rush for them, but what I have found is if I leave it to the last minute, I really am mad at myself, and then I'm rushing, and it's, and then you're rushing. Who wants to rush, right? So I have these sitting here. I'm going to, I guess I'll work on a dolly. Well, might as well do a little sewing, guys. And we're also in the middle of a heat wave. You want to hear something really funny? We're in this heat wave, and I kind of had enough, and I went and bought some. We don't have air conditioning in our house. I went and bought some window air conditioners for the house. I said I couldn't take it anymore. And it occurred to me that I'm 63 years old and I have never in 63 years lived in a house with air conditioning. My parents were not fond of it. And we always lived in the country and they always thought it was unnecessary. And my husband thought it was unnecessary. And it was just kind of so funny because we put in this air conditioner and, instantly relief. And I'm just like, how is it this crazy that I have lived 63 years of my life and never gone for this relief? Never once. Like, for some reason, it was not in my brain to just go get an air conditioner. It was just like, oh, well, we'll just, put a fan on. It's just kind of crazy. The things that the whole world is, nobody lives without an air conditioner, I'm sure. And here we are just doing it. And I don't even know. And for no particular reason either. Like, it's not, it wasn't like you could never afford an air conditioner. It wasn't, all kinds of stuff like that. Just you get your mindset in a certain way and you don't ever change it. It's just kind of a funny thing. But I do have the air conditioner now. And I had a really good sleep last night. So that was, well, aside from the arthritis. But that's good. So let's sew a dress. I'll show you, see? There we go. That's how it looks. Our pillowcase pattern is the skirt. So, well, I'm super, super, super convinced that one of the things necessary to help with my arthritis is to eat more fermented food. I was talking to a really good friend of mine on the weekend, and she was telling me, she's Polish, and she was telling me about the fermented food and the fermented cabbage, and I had already decided in my head that we need to eat more fermented food. Like, it's kind of a key to things. Like the kombucha is fermented, sourdough is fermented, and you know, pickles and sauerkraut, you know, it can be fermented. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, yes, I'm going to make this fermented food. And I bought, you know, I bought the stuff. I bought, here, this is 2 years ago, I bought these little lids and these little weights to make the fermented food, and I made it. And I very soon realized that nobody would eat it, including myself. Like, I wasn't in love with it. And my friend was telling me, she said that it's an acquired taste. Just like, you know, coffee is an acquired taste, beer is an acquired taste. It's an acquired taste. And once you acquire the taste for it, she said, then you crave it. She said, you crave it. And then I saw some advice about if you have a hard time eating fermented food, to eat it slowly, like to ferment it and then start eating it day one. Like, I mean, I think fermenting, they go like 10 days or something to ferment it, and then you put it in the fridge 7 to 10 days. And you work yourself up slowly to the fermented flavor of things. My granddaughter was having an infection problem, and my daughter couldn't beat it. So she went to the herbal shop and she said, I need some help to do this. And like, what do you recommend? And she said, well, she put her on a cleanse, a no carb, no sugar, and I think no dairy diet, right, for a week. She did that for a week, and then she took these pills. And I was telling, these herbal pills that the herbalist gave her there. And I was telling my daughter that I was convinced that the key to healthy living is fermentation. And oddly enough, her mother-in-law was asking about what these pills were that Audrey was on. You know, it's because she had another granddaughter that, you know, could probably use a little help. And so my daughter went and got the pills, and then she looked at them and she read them, and they were fermented. They were fermented pills. They were, I don't know how you ferment a pill, but that's what they were. So she was basically taking a fermented product. Since my granddaughter has done that, she's had no infections. She's been clear, good bill of health. Like, everything has kind of gone back to normal. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'm going to have the same kind of luck. I mean, I was already convinced beforehand that the key to everything was fermentation. So I thought, I have to get at it. I have to get at eating more fermented food, and I have to, you know, stop the sugars and stop the carbs. So I'm on day 4. Day 4, no sugar and no carbs. I didn't do no dairy. I have very little dairy in my diet, aside from butter, which is a fat, really, and a tiny bit of cream in my tea, and I usually only have one a day. I don't actually have a lot of dairy in my diet, so it wasn't that. I just thought, well, we'll try this first before we go hardcore. But anyway, so that's what we're doing here. But I meant to try these pickles day 1, and I never got around to it because I knew I was going to make this video, so I kept waiting for myself to make these videos so I could try the pickles that I made. Well, the fermented cucumbers that I made 4 days ago, right? So this is day 4 of this fermented pickle. So I'm going to peel one of these out, and I'm going to give it a try. Well, they smell pickly. Sour. It's not bad. It still tastes like a cucumber. So if I can still taste the cucumber, I'm guessing that it's not fully fermented. But it's sour. You know what? I may stop the fermenting of these, and I may put them in the fridge, and I'm going to eat one of these a day for a while. And then I'm going to make another batch, and I'm going to ferment them longer. and then see how it goes. I'm going to try and gradually work myself into this. We'll see how long it takes me to get addicted to these and crave them, like my friend said it would happen. Well, here I have. I think once I get into this fermentation, I might do some videos on fermenting. But I'm not an expert on it, guys. I've only done it a handful of times. A handful of times does not make an expert. So I've shredded up with this mandolin here, some cabbage and some carrots and some onions. I'm just going to put that in there. I did it off camera because it was very awkward and very hard. Really hard, actually. I could hardly operate this machine. I do not have enough pressure in my hands to, for one thing, you have to hold it, and then I have to push down and like that, down like that. And you know, I did a little bit, but it was awkward and it was goofy looking. And I thought, I'm not doing that on camera. We've got our vegetables in there. I have a little cabbage, a little bit of carrot, and a little bit of onion, much as I could manage there. And I have 2 cups of unfiltered water. Guys, this is how easy this is to create your own. I'm telling you, no ingredients necessary, just a tablespoon of salt. Not iodized, just uniodized. So I'm just going to put that in there, tablespoon with 2 cups of water, unfiltered. I don't ever have to worry about the water situation because in this house we're on a well. We don't have city water, so we don't have anything in our water. Our water is not filtered. All right, I'm just going to pour it in here. There we go. And then we're going to put a weight on it. That's to make sure everything is under the water. Nothing is sticking up. There is a rubber thing that has a little hole in it like a baby bottle. We're going to put that on top. And we're going to put this on. So when you're fermenting things, what happens is that this is going to gas up, bubble up. So this little thing releases the gas so you don't have an explosion on your hand. I've had a few explosions with the kombucha. That buildup of gas is not fun. So we're going to leave this. Maybe I'll give it a try tomorrow. I mean, I didn't mind that pickle. I mean, that was 4 days fermented and it tasted fine to me. So maybe 2 days. I'll leave it 2 days and then I'll try some. I'll have some with dinner and then I'll have a little more and then a little more. We'll build it up so that we crave it. We crave the ferment. Look what I got. Look what I got. I'm just sitting here doing some prep work, getting these peppers done for when I go do the freezer meals. If you make out a plan of exactly what you want to do to put in your freezer, this is what I do, guys. I make out a plan, and then I get everything ready beforehand. You know, I'm going to cut all these, and then I'm going to put them in the freezer. And then when I go to do this, I'm going to pull them out of the freezer, throw them in the bag, and then put them back in the freezer. So I get everything ready that I need to get ready. Now, with me, with my situation, things take me a little bit longer than maybe, you know, back when I was in my 40s, I'd buzz through this, and I would just buzz through it in a blink of an eyeball. I watch my daughters go, and they just buzz through things, and it just takes me back to my youth, and I think, man, if I could buzz through things like that again, I'd be so happy. But anyway, God's will be done, and I can't. But look at, I can't, so we just manage. We just manage. That's what we do, guys. Look. So this is very exciting because I bought this, and this is for the YouTube channel. And it just arrived, so I'm just going to take a minute. I thought I'd put the camera on and share because I'm so excited. I'm telling you, we can't even open a label without ta-da. It's just awesome. Anyway, I did say to myself, I mean, my YouTube channel is basically, it's for my friends and for my children and my grandchildren, for prosperity. They really enjoy watching me. And I want to teach my children, my daughters, and my grandchildren what to do if they need to do it. And they can just come back, well, hopefully, hopefully YouTube doesn't crash and burn, I don't know, long after I'm gone. And they can watch Grandma, tell them how to cook and make things. But anyway, so the plan with YouTube was not to spend money. This was just a hobby. This was just something for fun. This was just to do for, all the people that I love. And of course, anybody who wants to join, I love you guys too. And I want you to prosper and be well too. So, but the last few videos, I couldn't take it anymore. When you're doing these videos, you have no idea that your voice is cutting in and out, or that mic on that phone is not picking you up. And then, you've done all this video. It's not like a movie where the director knows if it's working or not, and then he says, cut, redo. And then you do all this footage and it kind of stinks, and you're like, oh, that was such a waste. So I bought myself some mics, guys. So not this time, but next time I'll have some mics on, and then maybe I can talk clearly and you can understand, and I won't be cutting in and out. So, all right, guys. Well, I guess that's it. That's it for the Sunday vlog. I did want to end on a thought though, because I had just gone through my camera, my cell phone, and I had sent all the footage, all the video that I had taken throughout the week whenever I thought to put a camera on. Unfortunately, I didn't think very often to put the camera on, but what struck me was my very first video of me very early in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. And as I mentioned in the grocery video, I put myself on a diet, and I have mentioned it throughout this video. This no carbs, no sugars, to try to do something about the arthritis, because it is overtaking me. And I thought I could see it. I could see myself in the video at the beginning, where I am up at 6 o'clock in the morning working on the dolly. And I thought, I don't know if you can see it, but I could see it. I could see the pain. I thought, man, I can see the pain. Like, I'm looking at you and I can see the pain. Well, I don't know if that's because I know the pain I was feeling when I was doing that dolly dress, that when I get up in the morning and I have to sit there at that table. But I usually have a shower. Like, I have to have a shower and put myself under a lot of hot water to start to move again. And I take 3 Advil. And I usually, sometimes, not always, I have a drink. Like, I take some sort of alcohol up to bed with me when I go to bed. And then in the morning, I will drink that, like, I feel like the one thing I feel like is that I can see how people become alcoholics, like when they're in pain and when they're in suffering. So I feel like I have a lot of sympathy for that right now, but it's no good. It's no good to exchange one bad thing for another bad thing. Like that doesn't solve problems, guys. It doesn't solve problems. I'm certainly not an advocate at all for drinking. I don't like it at all. But what I did want to talk to you about is, I thought maybe some of you are watching this and you might say to yourself, why don't you go to the doctor and get on the pills? Why are you keep suffering like this? Why do you allow this suffering to keep going on? And why don't you do something about it? And that's a good question. That's a fair question. And I kind of thought, I want to tell you why I don't do anything about it, because there's many reasons. There's many reasons. The biggest one is that long suffering is actually a virtue. And I know the world that we live in doesn't really understand that. Maybe you're like, I just said that, and you're like, seriously, you just said that? Like, it's a virtue to suffer? Like, that's crazy talk. Like, that's the kind of, what, shall I go out and make myself suffer? And no, that's not exactly what that means. It means to be able to take the crosses that God sends you, and to take them joyfully and not complain about them. That's what that means, right? Because our crosses do come from God.
right? Sometimes we make them ourselves, that's for sure, by the stupid decisions that we make in life. Generally, we can say that it comes from God. And why I want to talk about this, I want to explain why it's not that bad of a thing. I mean, first of all, first and foremost, everybody has crosses. Everybody. Nobody gets out of this world without a cross. So you could say to yourself, I could say to myself, I've got to get rid of this cross. I've got to get rid of it. I can't function till I get rid of it. Well, I'm just going to get another one. Another something will happen. Like, you tell me the person that lives in this life without a form of suffering, without, without a heavy weight upon their shoulders, whether it's a heavy heart or it's anxiety or it's depression or it's all these things that happen in the world, that person doesn't exist at all. They don't exist. It's impossible. So everybody has that cross that they have to deal with. People generally, if they're wise, they like to pick their own crosses, the easy ones, but we don't get to pick our own. We just don't. They come our way. And when we beg for something to be taken from us, usually something worse comes in and takes its place, not something better. Not it never. It's never something better. And then when we think about the suffering that we're enduring, and we think about all the other suffering that maybe other people we know are enduring, like like, okay, let's take for instance, I'm not an alcoholic, so I don't have those struggles that a person of addiction has, right? And I mean, I can relate to them now because I'm drinking at 6 o'clock in the morning. People, I mean, it's not I'm having a shot. I'm not drinking, you know. And so you could say, well, I'm blessed. I don't have that, or you could say, I'm blessed. I don't have this, or you can think of all the friends that you have and all the all the hardships that they're going through, and you can say, well, I'm very blessed. I don't have that. And then you start to just be grateful for the little suffering that you have, instead of lamenting it and having letting allowing that suffering to take you down. You don't allow that suffering to take you down. When you embrace it, you allow the suffering to lift you up. Now, I know that's kind of hard, maybe it's a hard thing for people to understand or to explain, but it's true. St. Paul tells us it's true. He says, there's power in afflictions. And you say, power in afflictions? What the heck does that mean? Power in afflictions. I'm afflicted, so I'm powerful. But it gives you an inner strength. When you can endure and outlast the sufferings that are placed upon you, you are a very strong, powerful person. It's true. And if you don't want to believe St. Paul, like maybe you're not a religious person, you don't really care what St. Paul has to say, how about Kanye West? What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And that's the truth, guys. It's the truth. When we endure and persevere and push through something, that's what makes us strong. If we crumble like cookies and, it's the minute all the sorrow and the suffering comes and we fall apart to pieces because we can't handle it. And the guarantee 100% is the sorrow and the suffering is going to come. We don't get away from it. Nobody in this world has ever gotten away from it. And sometimes we live our life thinking that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And look at that person. They don't suffer. They live in a big house. They have lots of money. They suffer in ways you can't even imagine, because everybody has that suffering. Everybody has something. Everybody has a story. Everybody has something that's unique to them. So the virtue comes when we can just accept it, accept that cross. So I don't know. Hopefully I explained that well for you guys so that you can understand. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't want to do something about this. I'm still functioning. Sometimes I think in my head, I think I'm looking after people, and I'm not ready to be at the state where I'm the one that needs to be looked after. I look after my mother, and I look after, food here. I look after things. But, again, God's will be done. God's holy will be done. That's the way I live my life. And that's what brings peace and confidence. It brings peace and confidence and the ability to overcome the struggle. The struggle is real, and I don't take anybody's struggle away from them. You know, I understand how hard life is for everybody. So I hope I've made sense. I hope you understand that. I hope I've made it sound all right and not sounded crazy, because the world would tell you it's crazy. They would say, "Oh yeah, sure. Embrace the suffering. Good idea." They would, but I'm telling you, it is a good idea. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It gives you fortitude, strength, courage to go out and face the world and face the traumas and face the difficulties. So, anyway, if you're hearing it, whatever trauma, suffering you have going on, and I know you have it because everybody has it, embrace it today. Embrace it. And your load will be lightened. The yoke is sweet, the burden is light, guys. And I hope I didn't sound too preachy or too sermonizing, but I did want to share with you why I continue on with this and why I kind of embrace it and I don't run to the doctor over it. I'm not telling you guys not to run to a doctor. If you have a medical condition and it needs looked after, you need to go to a doctor and look after it. Okay, don't take this as a thing that you don't go to doctors. Okay, so anyway, that's it for Sunday. I hope you had a peaceful Sunday. I hope you found some joy, and you know, it's funny how joy can be found in suffering, guys. It's true. And if you can't find the joy, maybe you got to relook to where the suffering is and then embrace that so you can find the joy. I know it sounds weird, and I know it sounds contrary to everything they teach us in this world, but trust me, guys, it's true. It's true. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. God bless everybody. Have a good Sunday. Have a good week, and I'm pulling for you. Okay? We'll see you next time on the Sunday vlog.